The thing that I think has been most striking to many about this whole recall process has been how belligerent, how nasty, how obnoxious the unions have been. I can't tell you the number of people who I have talked to who have said they aren't surprised that there was a backlash to Governor Walker. What has surprised them was the rhetoric and the tone of the backlash. That they never really knew that public employees, particularly teachers, were like this. They never knew that they were this militant. They never knew that they were this rabid. And I want to expand on that for a minute here. One of the things that I do is I study human nature. I have a pretty good sense as to how people tick. I know what makes people tick. I know that people are looking for ratification. That's a big, important word, ratification, for everything that they do. People want to know that what they're doing is okay. They want acceptance. It's the thing that's driven much of the gay movement. The reason they want gay marriage is because they want the rest of society to say that what they're doing is okay. One of the reasons conservative talk shows have such a loyal audience is because there are a lot of people out there who've held conservative beliefs their entire lives, but until we talk show hosts came around, they never heard anybody expressing their point of view. I can't tell you how many times people have made that comment. You know, I had these thoughts and I had these opinions, and then you came on and I finally said, you know, that's what I think. People like having their own ideas ratified. Look at the Hollywood crowd. The first day one person put on a red ribbon for AIDS was the day that they all had to put the red ribbon on for AIDS. Then when it became acceptable not to wear the red ribbon at the awards show anymore, they all stopped wearing the red ribbons. They all conform. This sounds like a stupid statement, but it's actually profound. Do you know why most celebrities are liberal? Because most celebrities are liberal. Hope you can follow that. Why are most celebrities liberal? Because most celebrities are liberal. That doesn't make any sense. Actually, it makes a lot of sense. The reason most celebrities are liberal is because most other celebrities are liberal and they want to fit in. They don't want to be the oddball. Celebrities, their entire careers are premised on public approval. The audience has to like their music or like their acting or like their TV show or whatever. They need the applause and the adulation from their fans. They need the attention. So they're going to gravitate toward holding political viewpoints that keep them in the mainstream of everybody that's around them. It takes a truly strong-willed person to buck your surroundings. It is a lot easier to be a liberal teacher than a conservative teacher. I'll give you a big one. Blacks. Overwhelmingly, blacks are Democratic. It takes incredible strong will and independence to be an outspoken black conservative. Teachers. Because most teachers are overwhelmingly liberal, it takes a very, very strong will to be the one who walks into the teacher lounge and say, not only do I hope Walker's not recalled, I hope we lose this rotten union because it's spending my dues on a bunch of crap I don't believe in and I think you're all nuts. That takes a strong-willed person. Some of you out there have it easier than others in my audience. Those of you who work in the private sector and live in, say, Washington County or Waukesha County, and all of your friends are Republican, it's not hard for you to be a conservative. When do you have to put up with any crap for your beliefs? Maybe an occasional family member or something, but when everybody in your circle of friends is conservative, It's a lot easier to be conservative than when everybody around you is not. But it's especially powerful in the workplace. I started this discussion with the comment that people need ratification. They want approval of what they do. They want to fit in. They want to be part of it. What this leads to is a mob mentality. Psychologists have written about it, and we've observed it forever. One of the most recent instances was the night of the July 3rd fireworks in Milwaukee, where the people who were sitting in the park near North Avenue were attacked and beaten up by a mob of young people, predominantly black, who were coming back from the fireworks. They went in and they smashed up a convenience store and they beat up a bunch of people. Remember that? It was one of those deals where you could just tell, because some people started doing it, the rest started doing it. Mob mentality. Rioting is a perfect example of this. People who on their own wouldn't smash out a store window, they see others doing it and they get caught up in it. Most unions are nothing more than the mob. A mob mentality. They get caught up in their thing and they're willing to engage in behavior that a one-on-one they might not otherwise have done. One of the great services of Governor Walker is to weaken these unions. I don't believe all unions are bad. I've made that clear over and over. I do believe, however, that most are very counterproductive in our society. You want to kill an industry? Unionize it. You want to destroy the quality of a government service, but make the taxpayers pay more for getting a lower result? Unionize the workers. And again, there are exceptions. Some unions are much better than others, and I would say that a couple of them are actually pretty good and are proactive. I'm generalizing, but I'm making it clear that I'm generalizing. A generalization is just that. It's something that's usually true. It's not something that's always true. Generally speaking, I think unions have gotten to be very, very counterproductive in our society. Their motivations have been to protect the most incompetent, the weakest, and the worst. Unions have become something that always sees the employer as a bad guy. The union doesn't want the employer to thrive. And the unions create an us against them mentality that is very, very counterproductive. In order to keep people happily within the union mode, they tell them that they're victims. They tell them how rotten they have it. The members of the union thus become, by and large, bitter, angry people. Told the story about how you can always tell the difference between a private school teacher and a public school teacher. The private school teacher is the one with a smile on her face. Same thing in the American workforce. You hear somebody who does nothing but bitch about his job? You know what you think? Yeah, I bet he's in a union. And yes, he's in a union. Because this need for ratification is so great, the pressure that's put upon those that are open-minded enough to dissent is powerful. It's overwhelming. I have teachers call me up all the time or send me an email saying they actually usually don't call. They don't want their voices recognized. All we do is trudge along the hallways and we keep our mouths shut. We don't even know who the other conservatives are because none of us dare to say anything. We could talk, but why run the risk of being the most hated person in my workplace? When I talk to people, I try to change the subject away from politics, talk about it. I hear this all the time because they know how miserable their lives are made by unionists if they dare to think for themselves. The history of American unionization, again, with some exceptions, again, I'm generalizing. Corruption, fraud. Look at the Teamsters. Can you find an organization in America with a more despicable track record than that union? Corrupt, illegal elections, ripping off their members' money to funnel criminal projects, sanctioning illegal activities. Back when they represented the truckers, they were shooting at people. An organization that from its earliest days has produced nothing but one dirtbag leader after another. Managed to produce not one but two Hoffas. Imagine that. Anyway, what these unions do to keep everybody in line is they don't tolerate any kind of dissent. And what I think we've seen in Wisconsin this past year has been that the government unions are a lot more belligerent, a lot more ugly, a lot nastier, and the individual members are a lot meaner brand of person than I think most people had expected. I had somebody say to me about a year ago, that the government unions of Wisconsin had it their own way for so long, we never really knew what they had in them. We never really knew that deep down they were the same thing as the Teamsters. The reason we never knew it is even though they've always complained, even when they had things their own way, they always found something to complain about. They were complaining about the QEO, or they'd be complaining that they had to wait 8 months for the contract, which would still give them their pay raise, which still gave them the pension for which they paid nothing, that still gave them the free health insurance and all of that. They've always complained. There isn't a time that they didn't complain. They complained when Doyle ran everything. They complained when the Democrats gave them everything they want. They complained when these school boards rolled all over to them. They've always complained, but since they were always getting almost all of what they wanted, we never really had an opportunity to see what would happen when somebody finally told them no. And I believe, and this is the point that I know this segment's been going on and on and on, and the reason I started with these numbers on the recertification is it gives you a pretty good indication of what percentage of Wisconsin school teachers are liberal, and I would say 75 to 80. I'd say 75 to 80. Another 10% are probably neither, and 10% are conservative. And I'm again referring to public school teachers. 75 to 80% are probably Democrats, 10% are Republicans, and another 10 to 15% in the middle or don't care or don't vote or aren't political at all. That's a guess. I might be off by a little bit, but I don't think that I'm off by much. And what they managed to do when they form themselves into these groups called unions is they become far more vicious, obnoxious, and ugly